With all due respect, this system, as we have established, if you're intelligent and you get it, this system, everyone within the system is a slave. It's a worker of the system. If you want to quote unquote get free from it, you would need to understand what the system is, why it is there, how it has been birthed, and what is your relationship with it. Some people think that if they have money, they're free from the system. This is because that person hasn't undergone a deep enough process to understand what the system is. Sure, within the system, there's echelons. There's the basic people who are very dependent on money because they don't have so much. They have to work to have just the minimum. So they have a certain lifestyle within that system, quote unquote, matrix. I didn't call it a matrix, I said the system. But okay, we understand each other. If you understand the game of money, you can choose, if you'd like, to play that game and acquire more money, which puts you in a better position. Well, definitely a better position within the zoo. You're in a better position. It gives you more freedom, but you're still in the system. Some can argue you're even more dependent now. But let's not take that door. So you're still in the system. It's not because now I don't have to deal with the petty things that poor people have to deal with that I'm free. This is an illusion. How could you be free? First, you don't understand the system. I'm not saying you understand. No, you don't understand how it was birthed, by what mind it was birthed. Over thousands and thousands and thousands of years, generation after generation, this system is a byproduct of a mind. And that mind today has crystallized itself to the point where our system is taking such a shape and becoming so rigid and so like it's perfectly controlled with the technologies that allow that. So if you want to quote unquote get free from the system, it's not a question of money. Money is the system. It means that in a way you play the system better than your average person. I'll give you that. You're still in the system. You're still dependent on the system and you're still using the energies of the system. That's your fuel. So how is it that you're free? That's an illusion. The system is fear-based. Fear of one thing. There's only one thing. We've covered it at different times. It's covered in my book in depth, as best as I could. It's hard to express. I'll do my best again to explain. Human beings are suffering from a fundamental disease caused by, in the Bible they say original sin. I call it a primary lesion. It means something happened to the human being. I'm not going to get into this. That disconnects, there's a disconnect in the human being. And from that point on, the human being feels worrisome for his life. Dogs, cats, animals, albeit there's an instinct to survive in them, they will not kill themselves intentionally. They do not live in the fear of death. They do not want to die. There's a self-preservation mechanism, but they do not fear death in the same way that human beings are terrified, petrified, mortified of death. So it shows you that there's something within the human being that is broken. And it's that thing, if you don't like broken, disconnected, whatever you want. That thing, that fundamental fear has created in the nervous system an extreme reaction over thousands of years that has pushed the intellect to develop itself the way it has developed itself in order to do one thing: solve the problem of death. The system is the arena. It's a how do we call this? It's a sublime, efficient, as it's getting more efficient and more efficient, container to, number one, protect the human being from nature, and to harness all that creative, it's not creative, it's fear energy, but it still comes from the same centers, in order to channel it, organize it, and push it so that it can find the solution. If you think the system or society, or call it whatever you want, you can look at it from so many angles with your little geek mind. You have to take a macro vision. What's it for? Really? is trying to resolve one problem. Because there's only one problem plaguing humanity: death. So the system is only trying to bring all these energies together so that they converge to push the genius and push in innovation so that human beings can master nature in order to be able to conquer death. So when we speak about fear, this fundamental fear, it brings us to 5 basic energies: anger, greed, attachment, lust, ego. We've covered them in the previous videos. When I say these things, I'm not saying them in the pejorative sense. Ego, you're a horrible person. Anger, oh my God, you should not be angry. Anger is evil. Lust, oh my God, you just want to fuck a donkey and everything. I didn't say it like that either. Attachment, oh my God, you're like holding, and greed, you always want more because you're a despicable miser. No, that's not at all what I'm saying. I'm talking about fundamental expression of primal energies within nature that push you into action. And they're all coming from the same fundamental fear. It is death. So the system is a byproduct of those energies developed over time. So when you are in the system, you're serving those 5 energies all the time. These are the energies that motivate you. Ask your average person, or just observe them. That would be fair because most people lie to themselves. But if you talk to a real person who's very honest, they'll tell you, I'm motivated by anger. I'm motivated because I want to prove things to other people. I'm motivated because I want more. I'm motivated because I want to show that I'm a superior human being and I want my name to echo in eternity. These are the 5. If you take any of these energies and you push them to the extreme, what are they trying to do? Achieve a sense of absolute mastership. But it's in a certain angle of mastership based on a fear of death. So the system is the byproduct of those energies. So if you're in the system and you say, quote unquote, I'm free from this system, how can that be if these energies are guiding you? You're a liar. Well, you don't know what you're talking about. You're unconscious of what the system is and what's beyond the system. You don't know dharma, so how could you talk about being free from the system when you are a slave of the system? These 5 energies make you a slave of it. What's going to feed your ego? Nature doesn't feed ego. Nature doesn't care. What feeds your ego? Applaud, name, fame, glory. Who's going to give you name, fame, and glory? In this day and age, the internet, millions of subscribers or followers, people chanting your name. How are you going to get that nourishment outside nature where nobody cares? Nobody cares about the greatest tree that's ever existed. There is no such thing as the greatest tree that's ever existed. There may have been a king tree, and the king tree just did what the king tree does. Hold it down for the other trees to shine. Right? Where are you going to accumulate more? Accumulate, let's say the energy of greed. Accumulate. Number 1, to secure yourself because you feel you never have enough. And number 2, to prove to other people that you're a superior being. Where are you going to get that? In nature? No animal in nature ever does that. They don't know that because there's always enough for everybody. So where are you going to... So as long as these energies are motivating you, it shows by default that number 1, you have a fundamental fear of death, which is not a criticism. It's totally normal, right? And the system has you because the system is the only thing that can provide for you the resources to fulfill your lust, greed, ego, attachment, and anger. So it's not now because you play the money game of the system and you accumulate 1 mil, 2 mil, 10 mil, 20 mil, whatever amount of mil you want, or billion, 10 bill, whatever, it doesn't matter, that you're now free from the matrix. You have an easier time to navigate within it. I'll give you that. If you're rich, there are rules that don't apply to you because you're rich. I give you that. So you're a higher class citizen within the jail cell. I'll give you that. Is that a bad thing? No. If I'm going to be in a jail cell, why not have a good jail cell? I agree. And this is not, we're on the same page. But you cannot pretend that because you're in a beautiful jail cell that you're free. It's a jail cell. What are you talking about? You have shackles of gold or shackles of steel? It's a shackle. Are you confused? I think you are. Right? But people, your average person, your average guy, doesn't understand these things. They don't know that there's life outside the system. We've covered this in a couple of videos, a couple of series ago, when we put so much emphasis that there's a life outside of the system. In fact, the dharma, or that the way of life, holds the system within itself also. But there's a fundamental energy that is not bound in the system. The system doesn't know anything besides itself. It believes to be the end all and be all. And the people who are within it think there is no life outside of it. They don't know. They don't understand. They cannot fathom it. So it's their God. So if that's your God, then you see the people who are rich as the free. It's as if they beat the system. How could you have beat the system? You're a higher worker in it. But they cannot understand that. So that's why people have a tendency to worship the rich, because they seem free. Well, they're clearly free from a certain kind of hassle that you have, but they're clearly not free of the fundamental issue, which is death. In fact, they become more obsessed. Remember, there's a fundamental issue. So if you look at the so-called agenda and the so-called New World Order and all this bullshit, and you look at where this is where it wants to go, it's trying to go to one place. It's already happening. Some people say it's transhumanism. What's transhumanism? These are words that mean nothing, or they mean something, but we're trying to make the human not die. At the end of the day, why do we want to improve on the human? Because the human is fallible. He dies, she dies, it dies. We want to make sure that death no longer takes hold upon us, which means we have defeated the enemy, which is nature. This what I'm saying is built into our system. It doesn't matter where you look. It's literally, this is the ethos of it. It is the mind of it. It doesn't matter what religion you believe in. These are sub-constructs. That's still the mindset. Nature is the enemy. We must defeat her. How do we do that now? So what kind of mind thinks this way? Well, clearly it's not an organic mind, if we can call it like this. So I'm not going to go far off of what kind of mind thinks of this, but you understand what I'm trying to say. So your average person believes that the rich are free from the matrix itself. They call it a matrix, or they call it the system, and now they're free because they have their own planes. They don't care. They don't care if KLM says you can't come in. They have their own plane. They have their own helicopters. Yeah, I'm not. Yeah, of course, that's great. Good for you. You don't know what they pay as a price to have access to their own helicopter and whatnot. But sure, they don't have this issue. They don't necessarily need to grocery stores. They have their own farms. Yeah, I'm not saying they don't have a better situation than your average slave, human person, right? But how is it that you can say they're free? They're still in the zoo. They're just higher echelons workers or slaves of the zoo. So, am I saying you shouldn't try to upgrade yourself? No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying if you're really looking for peace, or quote unquote to set yourself free, you can't find it there because there's no exit. It doesn't matter how much money you have and how much quote unquote power you have, you're still a slave of those five energies, and that means you're scared to death. And that is why you're a slave of the system. And the system goes far beyond the little society that we have. It's a mind. So let's say that mind is trying to materialize itself. It is materializing itself. It will materialize itself through time. And now, or let's say midway in the movie. So you're seeing its manifestation a little bit, but it still exists. It's just invisible. It's much, much bigger. That empire of that mind is so much grander and so much bigger. We just don't see it yet. So to the people who are quote unquote looking for freedom, if you're a smart person, you got to look. That's why I asked you, look at rich people. I'm not saying their situation is not necessary, it's not better than yours. Well, this is arguable, but let's say for the sake of conversation, I'm like, no, you need to discover the inner state. How does that person really feel? Well, they'll never tell you that, because their primary goal is to make you understand that they're superior to you. They're more intelligent, they're more beautiful, they're more strong, they're more everything than you. That's their goal. That's ego, greed, attachment, lust, anger. That's the game. And you worship them. So they're feeding off of you on top of that. So they've deceived you to make you believe they're free, and now they've convinced you that they're superior and they're free, so they're as gods, which means you give them attention and they're nourishing themselves with your attention. Remember, I've said this before, and if you're new to this, then I'll say it again. The system is based on scarcity. This mindset is a mindset of scarcity. There is no connection to life itself. There's connection to some form of death. There's scarcity. So people are lacking resources. So there's only one real resource at the end of the day. It's human energy, time, and attention, which is for me the same thing. So if I want to take something from somebody, I need your time, energy, and attention, which then elevates me. I stole your power. So if we live in a world of scarcity, and I want to empower myself, what am I going to do? I'm going to put myself in a place where you worship me, which means I'm going to steal your time, attention, and power. And that's going to nourish me. It's the equivalent of drinking human blood, if you'd like. So that's what we can see when we observe with a calm mind. So you cannot escape the so-called system because you have money. Don't be a fool. If you want to have money, but don't lie to yourself and thinking that now you're superior to other people because now you're free. No, you may be navigating through through society with greater ease. And if anybody has the capacity to quote unquote generate more wealth, you should do it. That's not in question. The question is, did that person achieve freedom? Is that person well inside? So anyways, I'm not here to judge. I'm here to ask questions. I've had the privilege of meeting countless people, and in my job, people talk to me. Okay? Not only do they talk to me, they share with me their greatest secrets. And in the past, I used to do hands-on work, so I literally touch the body. I touch how it is and how it's crystallized, the nature the person can conversate with me. So I'm aware of how people really feel. Anyways, like I said, if this works for you, enjoy. If you're looking for something else, then you have to think a little more intelligently. You cannot be fooled because it's there to fool you, and it looks very glamorous. You got these suckers there, and you're a horny little fuck. You masturbate since you're like 12 on bullshit. Right? And all you wish is to have like dolls with fake tits and the whole thing. And then you see these rich cats on their yacht. What are they doing? Nothing, because they don't have anything to do. They don't have to work, which means they're rich. That means they're free from the matrix. That's what it means. That's what the sales pitch is. And then they got a bunch of women. That means they're so fertile and they have so many resources that women flock to them. Please copulate with me so that I can bear your children because you're a supreme man. And of course, there's the upper echelon women, the most beautiful women. And you're like, wow, that's life. Well, that's life because you're a loser and you're a masturbating psycho. If you're more sane in your mind, you wouldn't see that's life. That's boring as fuck. That's number one. They drink alcohol and consume all kinds of drugs. It's like, you drink alcohol? Like, don't think I have something against alcohol. I have nothing against anything. Well, like, you drink alcohol. That says something about you. It says quite a lot about you. It says, number one, that you're tense. And the only way that you can depress your system, aka mean relax, is through substance use, because you don't know how to relax. You need some dilatation, so that the arteries relax, so the blood flows, and you can feel the tip of your cock, you feel a little bit of sensation, you're feeling good, now you're feeling hot. Anyways, the point is, for your average person who's stuck at home in the basement or God knows where in a very shit condition, and his life and his energy is so constricted and so tight and there's no air to breathe, well, when you see that, you're like, well, that's the life. Yeah, from that point of view, relatively, from this and that, yeah, that's the life. I've had some of that life. It sucks fuck. It's boring as shit. There's nothing to do. Who cares? Like, what's the point? What's the point What's the point of my existence? So I'm on a boat. I've been on boats. Great. Then what? I've been with countless women. Yeah, okay, that's great. Then what? I've been high and I've been drunk and I've been the whole thing. Okay, yeah, then what? Then like, it's empty. It has no meaning. So I don't say don't do it, but at some point you're bored. Like there's got to be more to life than hedonism because it's so short-lived and so shallow. It's like, what's the point? So I find myself, you go from being in a, let's say you're in a squeeze in a basement and your life is shit, and then you think you aspire and you grow and grow, and then you hear that dude on the ship and you got the music and whatever you want. You're like in a rap video with all these dolls around you who don't give a fuck about you, by the way, even if they pretend to like you, they don't. Because there's no love there. It's everybody for themselves. It's greed to the highest degree and lust. Not that this is bad, I'm just saying. There's no satisfaction. There's no meaning. And you're wasting your life and you know it, but you don't know what else to do. So once you've tasted it, then what? You're like, okay, then what? More. Right? I got this much. Maybe that's not enough. I'm going to have this much more now. Oh, that's not enough. I need this much more now. That's not enough. I need this, but it's the same. It's the same. It's more the same thing. So it doesn't fulfill you, which means what? It means you're stuck. That's what it means. It means, in other words, you're just as much a slave as everybody else, just on a yacht. So if you told me, would you prefer to be on a yacht as a slave or in a cage as a slave? I would say I would rather be neither. Listen, I said this before. I grew up in upper middle class suburbia. And for me, that life was a living hell. I cannot explain to you how much I was in agony. And people will say, oh, you're weird. You should have lived in the ghetto. From my perspective, the ghetto has an advantage to my life. The ghetto is, everything is honest. You're in hell, everybody for themselves, somebody's going to shoot you, somebody's coming after you. You get to see life really for what it is. At least from an angle, you're at the bottom. In suburbia, you're half numb, you don't know what the fuck is going on. Half numb, you're 99% numb, you have no idea. For me, that's agonizing, that generates much more pain than to face the truth. So what I'm trying to say is, like, which one would I prefer to be? On a boat, bored out of my fucking mind, pretending this is fun, endlessly churning and churning and trying to derive more pleasure from yet another pussy? Or would I have more pleasure being in a cage? I'm like, neither. I'm looking for some kind of answer and a solution. Being in quote-unquote better circumstances doesn't make it more pleasurable. That's what the reference was to my upbringing in so-called upper middle class suburbia. Being on a boat that seems like a paradise, it's a paradise for 5 minutes. That's 5 minutes. 60 times 5. That's it. Then it's empty. It cannot fulfill you. It has no meaning. It doesn't animate a greater sense of life and your purpose within that greater sense of life. Which means your relationship are all shallow because they're all based on nothing. Your relationship with a woman is based on nothing, just consumption. So listen, this is not to criticize. If this works for you, all the best. I don't care what you do. It's not my problem. I'm talking to people who have common sense and sensitive enough or intelligent enough, maybe not the word intelligent, but probably, to understand what I'm saying. This is a special time. Everybody can do whatever they want. I have no opinion about what you do. I'm interested in what I do, and I'm interested to communicate wisdom to people who are looking for light or answers that is outside of your mainstream, that's the way it should be, that's what life is about narrative. And as you can see, I'm not speaking spiritual. And that's super important for me to highlight. Because I studied spiritual and I went spiritual. Like, let's reject the materialism and reject this and reject that, and pussy is bad because it's temptation and that's lust. I'm like, I did that. I enjoyed it for what it's worth. Right? It's as insane as the other side as far as I'm concerned. So I'm not proposing that. I'm proposing something else. There's a place where things come in harmony because there's a greater truth that is not bound to left or right and duality. That's my interest. And that's how you can quote unquote find freedom, which doesn't exclude anything. Because at the end of the day, let's be honest. As human beings, we can say whatever we want about the system. There's an appeal to it, and that's what makes the system treacherous. There's an appeal to it because something about it reflects something real. It's where human beings are together and organized. It represents something. It's like the fake version of what it's supposed to be. But we don't have what it's supposed to be. We don't even remember it. But something about it resembles. It's like the reflection of another world that's real. So there's an appeal to it. And this is where we're all together as human beings. If you're secluded somewhere in the mountains, where's humanity? It's nowhere to be found. So there's an appeal to it. It's also extremely fascinating if you observe it. It's like, what a phenomenon. It's quite something. Where it's going, how it's evolving. It's quite redundant also, and it's quite predictable also in a way, but it's something to witness.